Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, a sea monster's embrace, popcorn buckets, pixie dust,
extra charge for Galaxy's Edge, another Disneyland After Dark event, we talk vlogging in the parks, and more. DL Weekly starts now.
Welcome to DL Weekly, a podcast about Walt's original Magic Kingdom, Disneyland. We cover the latest news and information from the resort, test our skills at trivia, and have a discussion about the parks every week. We invite you to send in your feedback and stories. Our contact information can be found at dlweekly.net. Now sit back, keep your hands and arms inside the podcast, and enjoy this week's show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of February 13th, 2019. I'm Tag Bushman.
And I'm Teresa Urban. We would like to send a shout out and a big thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon, including Edward J., who just joined us at the general admission level. This support helps make DL Weekly possible. Our patrons get some pretty nice perks, like access to our Discord chat, live show recordings, some DL Weekly swag, and more. If you would like to learn more, head on over to dlweekly.net/support.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we talked with Fred from Touring Plans about how their system helps you get the most out of your day at Disneyland. We're happy to announce that as a listener of DL Weekly, you can get your first year of Touring Plans free when you contact James and Mike over at Concierge to book your next Disney vacation. Concierge is offering this to all listeners of the show exclusively. Be sure to let them know that you are a DL Weekly listener. Concierge will get your hotel, tickets, dining reservations, and everything else customized for you, and then you can log into Touring Plans to get your days laid out so you can get the best value for your time at the parks. It really is a winning combination.
If you'd want to have a voice in the podcast and our discussion topics, please head on over to dlweekly.net/vote to register your choice for our next discussion topic. We have been getting a lot of great responses, so please keep up the great suggestions for the future of the show.
Now let's get to the news.
The Tangaroa Terrace has reopened at the Disneyland Hotel. Even the name has been updated to the Tangaroa Terrace Tropical Bar and Grill. The refreshed location also includes a new outdoor bar with seating, tables, and lots of nice tiki decorations. So the thing, of course, that we got excited about is, of course, new, redone place. So, of course, there's a new menu. And they have a breakfast menu and then also a lunch and dinner menu. So Tag and I, of course, looked through it, and we were just going to pick a couple of things to talk about. It's a very unique menu, though, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So for breakfast, they had something called the Tangaroa Toast, which is brick toast topped with bananas Fosters, whipped cream, and toasted coconut. And it's served with a side of bacon and some island fruit. I am so getting that when we are there later this year. That just sounds like a lot of sugar, but it sounds delicious.
When we were writing the script for this earlier, I remember Teresa going, "We're going here," and I was like, "Well, I thought that was the plan, that we were going to go there anyway."
Well, now we're definitely going there.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I agree with you with this toast. It reminds me of I don't remember exactly what it was. James, do you remember what it was called that we had at the Polynesian? It was something similar to that, wasn't it?
It was similar. I can't remember what it is, but I bet you our good friend Google knows.
So this reminds me of the Tonga toast that I had at the Polynesian in Disney World, and the only thing I remember about it, it was very good, but it was a lot because it was basically like a block, like a square, like a French toast that was like cooked and everything, and then just like on the plate. It was huge, and I just remember I couldn't get through it, but it was very, very good.
Well, maybe we'll have to share this one.
So what did you have for lunch or dinner?
So my lunch dinner picks is I would have to go twice because I had a couple of picks.
Oh, geez.
My first pick is actually the poo-poo platter, which is a lot of their different appetizers all kind of in one plate. Includes the pork dumplings, the panko crusted long beans, chili garlic edamame, and a sweet and spicy chicken wing, which is served with their togarashi aioli sauce. That's kind of a mouthful. But they just all look and sound so good, so I'd be able to try all of them. And this looks big, so either you have to share or this is a meal in and of itself.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of everything that they offer, almost. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Because I was thinking that it was just separate. You can get these things separately, but the poo-poo platter kind of is kind of like when you get
like a sampler platter.
Like an appetizer sampler, yeah. Mm-hmm. I thought that the pork dumplings looked the best out of all these things with the ponzu sauce. I mean, the other stuff looked good too. I really like the idea of the garlic and pepper edamame, but
yes.
I worry about the pepper because I have heat problems.
I'm curious about it. The other thing that looked interesting to me is they have something called shipwrecked nachos, which is traditional nachos. You got your chips, but then it's topped with Kahlua-style pulled pork, a pineapple salsa, hoisin sauce, togarashi aioli, and barbecue sauce.
I mean, it looked really good.
It just sounds like such a unique combination of things.
So we're going to have to eat there like every meal at this point?
We're going to have to go a couple of times, yeah.
Now, the next thing is they had some drink things, and I know, Teresa, you had some stuff written down here for the drinks. All I'm going to say is the cups are super cool, but I think that for what it is, it's very pricey.
They are pricey, but you do get to they're pretty nice cups though. I believe they're like, I don't know, some sort of like ceramic type cup. So it's not a chintzy plastic cup like you get other places. But the new drinks that they have are the Tangaroa Cooler, which is made with gin, some almond syrup, a Caribbean syrup, bitters, and lemon and grapefruit juices. Or there's this, it's called the Sea Monsters Embrace, which comes out in this like bowl looking thing almost.
Oh, that's the bowl one?
Yep. But it has, dark rum, gin, brandy, passion fruit, orange, lime, pineapple juices in it as well. So both of these very tropical, very fruity sounding drinks. They sound delicious.
Wow.
But yes, unfortunately, the price tag on them is if you get
the Sea Monsters Embrace is $58.
Yes, but it does say that it is large. You would want to share it, but still, it's $58 for this drink, but that does include your souvenir bowl or whatever you want to call it. And then the cooler, I believe, was $38 if you get the drink with the mug. So a bit pricey. So maybe, if you're on a budget, maybe don't purchase the glass. You can buy the glass separately and you can buy the drink separately. But the prices that we got were actually if you got the drink and the cup.
Right. Yeah, I think they said on there, too, that the drink prices were substantially cheaper if you didn't get the cup with it.
Oh, sure, I believe it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't necessarily hold your breath for this one, but it does look like World of Color is scheduled to return on March 1st with soft openings starting on February 22nd. Dining reservations are open for these dates on the Disneyland website if you want to get a meal and a great viewing spot for the show. I know we've reported on this before. Disney did, say that this is coming back. They obviously opened the dining reservations, which means that it's probably coming back. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, my fingers are double, if not triple crossed on this one. Because if you guys remember a couple of months ago, it feels like not that long ago, we had a similar news story that there was talk that it was reopening. Dining reservations at that point were open too. So things were looking good. But then something fell through and it wasn't able to open at that point. So fingers double, triple, maybe even quadruple crossed.
Yeah.
That World of Color is coming back soon.
Well, I know that there's some listeners that have communicated with us, and they had said that they really hoped that it was going to be open for their trips coming up in March. So I'm hoping for them as well.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate because it has been a long time that World of Color has been down for refurbishment. So people are getting antsy, rightfully so, just because we've been very, very patient waiting. Oh, yeah.
It's been a long time. It's been almost a year.
Yeah, it has. Well, be prepared because this summer you can celebrate The Lion King over in Disney California Adventure. The celebration will be filled with music, craft activities, and more. Everyone is invited to join in while a traveling troupe of storytellers celebrate in story, song, and dance. This sounds like such an interesting thing to me. It's weird that it's in California Adventure. I feel like this would be a better suited celebration for Disneyland, but obviously with how much traffic they're expecting for Galaxy's Edge opening this summer, you can't have these extra things going on in Disneyland Park. You gotta try and draw some of the crowd over to DCA. So hopefully this will do just that.
Yeah. I remember the Lion King celebration that they had back when the movie originally came out, and I thought that was really fun. A lot of the parade floats and stuff from that actually got reused for Animal Kingdom for their Festival of the Lion King. So if you go there, you can kind of get that idea. But this sounds great. It sounds like they are opening casting calls for performers that are like Broadway caliber and can do storytelling and a lot of good singing. So I'm actually kind of excited to see this when we go.
Yes, very, very much so.
Well, this next story, I'm glad that I checked online before we recorded because this popped up, and this one's an interesting thought process. The Orange County Register posted an article asking if attractions in Galaxy's Edge could cost extra in addition to your park ticket or annual pass. They discussed the possibility of selling the Fast Pass tickets before the new land opens to decrease the onslaught of guests who would descend upon the resort to experience the new attractions. So the idea is that they would open up that there would not be a standby line, that there would only be FastPass, which I think I had talked about actually as something that could be interesting when we talked about Pirates getting a FastPass, where instead of having a standby, you only had FastPass. Well, I'm thinking that to get access to this, you have to pay to get like a access, like an early access to it, so that when the day came, if you didn't have a ticket for Galaxy's Edge or the attractions in Galaxy's Edge, you just wouldn't go. That would, I think, stem the hours and hours we've talked about previously that people might show up before. If you don't have a ticket to get on and you know there's no chance, perhaps you will wait until you have that ticket.
It is true. I see both sides to this coin. It makes sense because then you're not going to have just tons and tons of people standing in the Galaxy's Edge park while you have, say, Space Mountain or some other attraction where there's absolutely no wait time because everybody's there just for that one part. And so basically your whole, however many people they allow in Disneyland are all trying to cram into one spot.
Yeah.
You know, it's a capacity thing because yes, the Disneyland park has X amount of capacity, but that doesn't mean that X amount of people are all going to fit in Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
So, I get it. But then the other part of me thinks that, this isn't what Disneyland's about. We're not supposed to be paying again to, getting into separate areas of the park. So that's kind of discouraging for that. So I have mixed feelings on it.
They did say that there was precedent for this because tickets, you used to pay an admission price to get into the park, and then you'd buy attraction tickets. So they were kind of saying it's kind of like buying e-tickets, where you buy a book and you get like 3 e-tickets, and once your 3 e-tickets are up, you either have to buy another book or you go do the A, B, C, D attractions. So I think this could be a smart thing. I think it's going to suck for like annual pass holders or people that have already booked a vacation for that time period. And, like us, we're going to be there. What if they do this and for whatever reason, even let's say we even pay for it, but the days that we're there, they're already, given out.
Yeah, it could work, but I feel like it's a little messy.
Yeah.
It's not my first way of wanting to experience the park, that's for sure, because then that's the other part of it too. I would be a little upset if I paid extra for this experience, but I still end up having to wait in a 4 or 5 hour line because they may be oversold, or they're trying to get as many people through as they possibly can.
Or it's a brand new attraction, which they always have downtime problems.
Yeah, whatever the case may be. So I feel like they're walking a thin line with this one. But it is just rumors thus far.
Yeah.
This is nothing set in stone. This is just a concept idea.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think.
totally.
Well, Disney has announced another Disneyland After Dark event, this time in California Adventure. On April 30th and May 1st from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., guests can come dressed as their favorite superheroes and experience some of the attractions in DCA during the event. Tickets go on sale February 19th for annual pass holders and on February 21st for the general public. I like this. It's about time that we have an After Dark event over in California Adventure. Yeah. And what a better theme than superheroes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they're going to have entertainment. They're going to have a dance party. You're going to have lots of superhero encounters. So I expect like almost every Marvel superhero to be out.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
They're going to have a park-wide scavenger hunt to find artifacts helping to save mankind.
You know how much I like the scavenger hunt.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be photo opportunities like always. There's going to be fun surprises with comic book art. And then and you get downloads of your PhotoPass photos from the event. So pretty cool. There is, I believe the pricing and details and everything are going to be posted at a later time. It does not look like they are there yet. Well, the decorative scrims have been installed on the scaffolding around Sleeping Beauty Castle this week. The front has updated concept art from Herb Ryman of what the castle was to look like before Disneyland construction began. The back scrim facing Fantasyland is of Prince Philip battling Maleficent with Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather up by the peak of the scrims. This looks great.
It looks so much nicer than just those plain brown, kind of almost brownish tannish, whatever color you want to call it, construction tarps or scrims that they had up before. It gives the park a little bit more depth, and it's just not as depressing looking now, I think.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, and I think that I really like, because Disneyland has not always done these painted scrims on things. It used to literally be scrims, right?
Yeah.
And I think it adds like such a cool touch because we've talked before, the castle is an icon of the park. A lot of people would be very disappointed if they showed up and they want to take a picture on Main Street, and the castle is
This big brown
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So the fact that there's at least some concept drawing still gets you the idea of what it would be like if the castle was there.
Well, and honestly, with how many different photo walls and stuff like that they have around the parks, the backside of this is perfect. Having the Maleficent battle with Prince Philip, and then the fairies way up at the top, kind of backing them up. I feel like there's going to be way more people taking photos from the backside of the castle to get this background. And it's a limited time because the castle, even though it's kind of, it's not our castle. It's still a castle. It's still, something that you could get, but very limited time that you'd be able to get your photo taken with Maleficent and Prince Philip.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, yet another popcorn bucket has arrived at the resort. This time, it's Minnie Mouse. This popcorn bucket is available to anyone, is not limited to just annual pass holders. It does not include the dollar refills like the annual pass holder exclusives one do, but I kind of think that this one's a little bit cuter. As much as I loved the Steamboat Willie, this one is just a nice pop of color. It doesn't look like it's the painting as, how do I want to say it? Because they were having issues with the Steamboat Willie ones kind of scratching, I guess, right away. These look like they're, I don't know, painted perhaps a little bit better.
Yeah, it looks like to me, and I can't tell, I'm just looking at the photo, it looks like that this might actually be like the plastic is that color, not painted.
I think the plastic is red and black, and maybe they just have the polka dots, the white polka dots are the actual thing that's painted on, versus the Steamboat Willie, I think the whole thing is paint.
Yeah, looking at this closer, this does look like paint here, but the red bow and the black ears and stuff are definitely like that is the color of the plastic, which I think they look great. They do a nice little pop of color. I'm excited they keep releasing these different character buckets. It's just tough though, because it's like for us, it's going to be hard because let's say they have these when we go or whatever. Where are we going to fit them in luggage and stuff? Like it's terrible.
Oh, we'll make them fit.
Sure.
The other thing I did see too that I wanted to mention is they have, so Minnie Mouse looks like is just at the Minnie Mouse popcorn bucket, which is shaped in that balloon style, looks like is just available in Disneyland. But over on the other side, over in Florida, it looks like they have a Mickey version of this bucket. So it's a classic Mickey. They have the Steamboat Willie, I believe, over there too, but they just have the black and, the red shorts, I guess would be a good way of explaining it.
Classic
Mickey bucket over there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Disney PhotoPass has added a little extra pixie dust to one of their favorite photo locations. Guests can think of all the joy they'll find when they leave the world behind as they pose in front of the train station while Peter Pan flies in the sky above. So this is super cool because it looks like they're going to offer this at Disney World, at the Magic Kingdom, and at Disneyland. I love these. Did you and Vern ever get any of these photos?
No, we didn't. I take way too much time. I'm that terrible person that is just go.
Yeah.
So I do not take the time always to stop and do the photo.
We're going to have to do some of these when we're there, though.
things.
Because it's cool, because like this one, Peter Pan's up there. When James and I went to Disney World, they had things like they'd have us put our hand, and they wouldn't tell you kind of what it is. And then when you get the PhotoPass, you're like, oh, that's what they were doing. We have one with us with the balloons from Up, like carrying us away. Tinkerbell in our hands, I believe, was one.
Yeah, there were the ghosts from the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, see, you'd miss out on that one.
I think there's Baby Groot I've seen over in California Adventure.
Yeah.
All sorts of them. They're very cool.
They are.
Well, there is finally significant movement on the Eastern Security Gateway that we discussed a permit for months ago. The new permanent security structure will replace the current security tents that were described as temporary, even though they have been there for years now. The new structure should allow faster processing of guests entering from Harbor Boulevard.
I'm excited that they're finally making a permanent structure.
Yay! Me too.
Because I think the last 2 times I went, which was like 2012 and 2015, they had the same tents there, like temporary from forever. And I like the idea that it looks like they're going to be able to have much more capacity, which I've seen online is greatly needed for that side of the park. Because there are some days where the line stretches all the way to Harbor Boulevard. That's a long way.
It is. Okay, is Harbor Boulevard the side I always go on?
Yes.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I wanted to make sure. I can't remember what the other side is.
No, it was funny because you were like, oh, yeah.
When Vern and I were just there last early summer, spring, whatever you want to call it, for Pixar Fest, it just seemed crazy to me how far back that line would stretch, and it just
slow.
for days, it felt like. So anything that is going to make it much faster for us to get in and through the security would be awesome. The other thing, too, is I'm hoping that they'll maybe make it a little bit easier for those security cast members, too, so that they have a little bit more space and make it easier for them to be able to do their jobs, too.
Absolutely.
Well, now we take a trip to Trivia Land where James tries to stump us with Disney trivia. He's going to read us the question, we're going to attempt to answer, and then he will give us the correct answers after the discussion topic. So what do you have for us this week, James?
So our first question for this week is, what was the only dark ride at the opening of DCA?
What was that?
Superstar Limo.
Yes, I was going to say the limo one.
On the tip of your tongue, right?
I'm like, the limo.
That's what you're saying?
Yes, Superstar Limo.
Yeah, that limo one. Got it. All right. Question
that I
number
never
2.
had the pleasure to experience.
Me either.
Question number 2 is, how many times do you see Indy in the Indiana Jones ride?
So you see him at the door.
Yes, and then you see him hanging.
And then you see him at the end. So 3.
I was going to say 3.
Speaking of 3.
We do pretty well this week, I feel like.
Shh, don't jinx it.
Yeah, now he's going to have the hard
And
one.
now you jinxed it, because now we have the listener questions.
Oh, no. Who sent this one in?
So this one comes from Richard S., who, if you want to hear him, he was on last week's podcast.
Oh, be nice,
about
Richard.
Infinite
Be
in the
nice.
Park.
Yeah, please, Richard.
We were nice to you.
So at Disneyland on It's a Small World, the stay in your boat instructions are spoken in 5 languages.
Oh, man.
What are they?
English. English.
1 down, 4 to go.
Yeah, right. Spanish.
French?
I was going to say Italian. German.
Oh, German. 1, 2. That's 5.
We'll go with those 5.
Okay.
Can you give us a refresher on the 5 you're going with?
English, Spanish, French, Italian, German.
All right. And our last question comes from Lauren W. And fair warning about this one, the history behind it is a little murky, but we're still going to go with it. So what popular mainstream snack food was created in the parks?
Main Street snack food.
Mainstream.
Stream.
I'm going to say the churro.
You really consider a churro to be mainstream?
Well, I mean,
I don't think it's churros. No way.
I'm going to say churro because
You
I
can
feel
say
like that's
churro.
the first place I saw them. But like, I'm thinking like, well, a Mickey Premium Bar is basically a chocolate ice cream bar, so that's not it. Like popcorn, but popcorn was around before Disneyland.
Mainstream.
It's not going to be like the candy canes because those were.
Can I get the question again, please?
Sure. So there's a bit of murkiness to this history, but what popular mainstream snack food was created in the parks?
The only other thing I would think is the Dole Whip, but
not
I
really
don't
a
think
snack
it's a
food.
snack food or mainstream.
Yeah.
I'll give you a hint. Just because it was created in the park doesn't necessarily mean it's a park staple.
Oh. Well, I don't know then, because I only think of the park staples.
I'm trying to think, like,
Would you have thought of this, James?
No way.
it's got to be something very obscure.
Well, guess it's something.
No.
Because we could sit here all night.
It is not obscure.
Snack foods.
Yeah.
Well, for Disney snack, as far as that goes.
You say Dole Whip? Is that your answer? You don't have a better answer?
Neither of us are right because he gave us a hint afterward.
It's a really fascinating story
I'm curious.
I can't wait to share it, and you'll have to wait until after the discussion topic to hear it.
So this week on the show, we actually have a special guest. We've been trying to, one of the requested topics that we've had from our listeners has been to have Disney vloggers on the show. And so we've reached out to a few, and the first person that got back to us ever so graciously, we're very happy to hear from him, is David from Fresh Baked Disney. Hi, David.
Hi, guys. What's going on?
Not much. So thanks for joining us and being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we're very excited
bet.
to pick your brain and talk Disney with you.
Happy to be here.
Awesome.
So we always ask our guests a couple of the same questions. So we just kind of want to get to know you a little bit more, Dave. So what's your Disney story? How did you fall in love with the parks?
Well, I've always been a Disney fan like everybody else, I guess. But in terms of Disneyland, that's actually kind of a new thing for me. I went as a kid, obviously, like most people did. But my current passion for it didn't start until I was, late 30s, early 40s, maybe.
Okay, cool. So how did you kind of fall in love with the park?
I felt like it would be a fun idea to get some passes for, the family.
Sure.
And because we hadn't, I had done it occasionally in the years past, but this one time we went for, I got it for Christmas. We went on Christmas Day. And when this is back when you had to go to the annual pass holder processing center and get your photo taken and go through this whole rigmarole. I remember feeling like I was at home more in a way that I hadn't ever felt before, when I was at the park. Like it was a place that I needed to be or belonged. And it was about a year after that I decided to start blogging from the park.
Well, very cool. So when you go to the parks, just as you with your family and friends, not as fresh baked, do you kind of always go, do you have a plan? When we go, we kind of always end up going the same way. So when you enter, do you go towards Adventureland? Do you go towards Fantasyland? How do you attack the park?
Well, if I'm doing the park non-show, which
it's probably very rare now.
I don't have a plan. No, I prefer to let the park happen to me. I prefer to, but I mean, it's the benefit of having an annual pass and being, local, but I prefer not to have any expectation and just to let the experience take part in that. So no, I don't go a specific direction wherever the wind takes me.
That's probably a good way to do it. Tag and I typically end up going towards Adventureland because we really like going on Indiana Jones first.
Oh, yeah.
However, I was there during Pixar Fest, and that totally did not work for me last time I was there. I ran into this wall of people that was almost like to the Tiki Room exit that was waiting to get on. I'm like, what is this? Because usually you could just zip on through, but not this last time.
That'll happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's I love Indiana Jones so much that it's been the tradition for me that it's the first attraction I go on when I get to the park, and it's the last attraction I go on to when I leave at the end of my trip. So, but I think it would be different if I was in your shoes, where I went more often. If I went weekly or something, I think that would change, and I think I probably would be more, I guess, zen. I guess I would say maybe about it, just kind of. Let the park speak to me, I guess.
Go with the flow. I like it.
And it's not as hard as you think. The park can guide you if you are in that moment. It's not as mystical as it sounds. You can. It's all about just seeing something that you find interesting and not skipping it because you've got other things that you want to do. If you see something and it makes you happy. Kind of like tidying up, does it spark joy?
There you go. Little Marie Kondo for you.
Go to it.
I like it. Well, and we talk about that a lot in our show, is how there's just so much hidden magic within Disneyland itself, because there's so many things that people just walk right on past and don't even notice are going on. So it's really cool to just kind of sit there and just kind of take in your surroundings and really pay attention to everything that's going on around you. Because sometimes you just get it's very easy to get almost tunnel vision, I guess, when you're there and just get so, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this. And
you've admitted that you're kind of like that when you go.
I get too excited. That's my
excited.
problem.
But I think that there's a lot of people, and I would even say, David, that a lot of your audience and a lot of our audience, they appreciate those little things. Like, the general, I would say that the general guest who sees it as a vacation destination only.
Absolutely.
They don't see that stuff.
Mm-mm. No, our fans are of the super fan variety typically, where it's the super fan that is into the detail, that is into the nuance. So that's probably why, my method of going to the park appeals to them.
Now, do you find, and I think we've found this with some of our listeners, but do you find with your community that becomes complicated? Because, I mean, do people like rake you over the coals when you get something wrong?
Well, it's interesting you say that. There are certain things that are verboten with our fans, and usually that is any kind of criticism, basically.
Oh, like criticizing the park?
Yeah. And I mean, I still do it, obviously, because I need to be fair and open-minded.
Yeah.
But yeah, because there is a fan for everything at Disneyland. For even the most, the attraction that you think is the worst, there are 10,000 people who think it's the best.
Yep.
So anytime
I would like to meet these Autopia fans because
I am one right here.
There
Are you really?
go. Perfect.
Answer this long question for me. What is what is it about the Autopia that sparks joy for you?
It's the history. It's I feel like I am in Walt's presence when I ride. It's just what it means to the park, and I don't care that it's a noisy 8-mile-an-hour thing that doesn't actually do anything. None of that matters, and it shouldn't, because I'm not at the park to be thrilled in that sense. Again, the contemporary sense. I'm at the park to feel that whatever Disney feeling that we often can't describe, which I'm having a hard time doing as we speak.
Well, it's indescribable.
That's perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
But that is one of the homes. That is one of the places where you can get that I cannot believe I'm in Disneyland right now feeling.
It is a very unique to Disneyland attraction. I will say that.
Yeah.
And they could never change it ever, and I would be happy with that. They could keep gas guzzling, vehicles that are noisy like that, and I'd be fine.
I think you've opened me up to a different way of appreciating things at the parks, because I think you're right with that. Like, because it was an opening day attraction, a Walt thing and stuff. And so I get where you're coming from. I never looked at it that way. I always just looked at it as, man, it eats up a ton of space in the park that they could put something way more cool there. It's loud, it's gas. Like, at least they could do electric with it or something. Like, it just seems so unexciting. Like, I'll go on it because I'm one of those people that likes to go on everything when I go. But it's one of those, like, I go on it once, it's off my list, I'm done. Like, I don't ever think to go back again to it.
Well, I would say that you don't know that you'll miss it until it's gone.
That's true.
That's true. That's true with almost everything.
Yep. Look at people are still wanting to ride Adventures Through Inner Space. That died a miserable death, but they still talk about it in terms like the fond memories. But I mean, nobody went on that attraction at its end. It died.
Wow.
But they still talk about it. They still miss it. They want it back even.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I actually just had a conversation with one of our listeners that said that she actually went in the mid-'80s and rode Adventure Through Inner Space. And I said how jealous I was that she was able to do that, because I thought it would look like a cool attraction. Of course, it's an Omnimover, which, I haven't ever been on an Omnimover attraction I haven't liked. So it's like... Oh, I wish, but I think it's kind of one of those things where, perhaps my fondness for it is because I never got to experience it. Maybe it wasn't that great. It's just the idea of it was great.
It wasn't.
I like who's like, yeah, so over here, it wasn't.
Well, what do you feel about, we have one more question to ask too, but we've gotten off track like we always do.
Sure.
But
Totally fine.
What do you think about the People Mover missing? Because, to me, that's something I really wish that would have stayed. That's maybe my Autopia in the same sense that you were kind of talking about the Autopia.
Well, I don't think anybody would argue about a love of People Mover. There's nobody in our fan base that doesn't miss that attraction or want it back desperately.
Well, my mom, who every day talks about how she wishes she never took me to Disneyland because she doesn't understand my obsession with it, and can't I just do something else that's not Disneyland, and why? She always, every time I bring up Disneyland to her, she goes, I miss the People Mover. That was such a great attraction. Because she said it was great because on a busy day, you get in it. It's a long, 14, 16-minute attraction. It takes you everywhere. You get to see a lot of stuff. And it was relaxing, and there was, hardly ever like a long line for it. And Teresa and I've talked about a lot of times that it's nice because you got to see a lot of attractions from it to kind of get you excited to go on the things.
Well, that's one of my favorite things are the views. I love seeing the park from different perspectives.
Well, I'll tell you, from watching some of
my
favorite videos of yours that I literally watch every single one that comes out because I find them the most interesting is your construction videos. And the people mover would have helped you with like the Matterhorn construction because you were always trying to get those seconds of monorail shots.
Yep. I would. Oh my gosh, I would love to have the people mover around for the Nemo subs, for Matterhorn.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You know, for a lot of that. Yeah, that would have been great.
So, what is your favorite attraction?
Well, that changes. Big Thunder, in terms of you know, how it speaks to me. It's the very definition of the merging of a ride in the contemporary sense and a properly themed attraction. It's as close as it gets to perfection as far as that goes. You know, it's a ride, but it also, I mean, it's got Tony Baxter's stamp all over it. And I just love how I feel when I'm there and I'm riding that ride.
Well, and the theming's just great on it. There's so many little things that even though I've been in it 100 times, there's still things that I'm like, have I seen? Oh, no, I don't know if I've seen that or not because it's already gone. I love it, though. It's great.
Well, and another thing that he did a fantastic job at, which I think is something that Imagineers do a lot for a lot of the fans that are die hard, is that attraction did really well at incorporating what used to be there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's a Baxter specialty, if you ask me.
Oh, I love Tony Baxter.
No, me too.
So, have you ever met Tony Baxter in the parks? You're in the parks enough. I feel like
I took a selfie with him when he was oddly he was in line to meet Mickey Mouse on Buena Vista Street, just like a regular guest, and I happened to see him and grabbed a selfie with him, and that was about it.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's so humble. Stands in line to meet Mickey like everybody else.
There was literally no fanfare whatsoever. He was just a guy in the crowd.
Wow. I tell you, man, I wish. I will say, I'll be quick with this because I want to get to the meat of stuff. But the one celebrity I saw in the park, I was surprised that nobody else noticed. I was walking, oh God, this was forever ago, but we were walking down Main Street and my friend Beth starts slapping me. And I go, what? And she goes, come here. And we go into the Carnation Cafe, and standing in line, she goes, that's Elijah Wood. And I go, that's not Elijah Wood. She goes, it's Elijah Wood. And I said, I don't think so. Because he was just hanging out. He was with like some other dude. And I was like, okay. Well, we waited freakishly at the end for him to come towards us. And I walked up to him and I said, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, are you Elijah Wood? And he looked around kind of suspiciously and he goes, I am. And in my stupidity, we had this stupid monkey that we had. Well, you've got a sock monkey thing you take pictures with.
I wouldn't hand it to a celebrity.
But we had this stupid monkey we were taking pictures with. And I said, will you take a picture with our monkey? So I have a picture somewhere of Elijah Wood and this monkey, but not of us with Elijah Wood.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Just such a dumb, very unique.
I think I was just shocked, and I was like, the monkey. I don't know. It's silly.
Yeah. So good for you for actually turning the camera and being with Tony Baxter when you met him.
I would
courage.
I would. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can agree.
What would you say? I mean, you don't want to like impede upon his time or anything. Oh, anyway, so people might know you from your channel on YouTube, Fresh Baked Disney. So how did Fresh Baked Disney kind of start? Like when? Like how did you come up with the idea? Where how did it begin?
We got the passes, as I mentioned. It was shortly after that. I wanted to know what was happening. It had been a few years since I'd been in the park, and I assumed things were different from what I could recall, and I wanted to see what the park looked like today, and just to sort of see if there's anything new happening or whatever. And I could only find one video. It was the Shaytards. I don't know if you know who they are.
Mm-mm.
They're a family vlog, a big time family vlog channel. And they did a trip to Disneyland, and they vlogged from the park, and it was fun. I enjoyed watching them go around the park, and I thought I want to do that. I really think I want to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that it is completely out of my wheelhouse. I am, that's just not me. I don't get in front of cameras. I don't talk extemporaneously. I am, I'm a quiet person generally. So. But I thought it would be fun to be at the park and just film me and the family being there and let people see what the park looks like today.
What a cool beginnings for the show, because that's what's so perfect about the show, the channel, however you call it, is that, I mean, that's what just draws us to it, is the fact. So we live in the Midwest. So the fact that we can't be there every day, we can just go on to YouTube, watch any one of your videos and check out what's going on this week. Or if we're looking, if there's some sort of festival, if there's something that we're interested in that for whatever reason we can't be there ourselves, you can kind of live vicariously through what you're seeing. So I think that's great.
Oh, yeah.
It's perfect.
No, we get a lot of that.
Well, and the thing too is, and you've probably gotten a lot of this feedback, and you kind of had it from why you came up with it. But one of the things we've gotten is a lot of people listen to our podcast because there's not a lot of Disneyland specific content. It seems like it's all Disney World related, and so they're like,
what is up with that?
Isn't that crazy? I think that is crazy. Because even podcasts, for example, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of Disney World related podcasts, and I feel like we're one of the few. I mean, maybe there's other ones I haven't seen, but there's just not that much, which is crazy to me because for me, I think the bigger fans, the more diehard fans are Disneyland fans because it's Walt's Park.
Yeah.
I don't get it either.
Well, and you hit on it a little bit earlier, too, with one of the feedback that we get is the fact that they like listen to us because we're not negative about the park. And you kind of said that that's kind of what your community is like as well.
Well, it's not that so much that they are anti-negative. It's just that there is always going to be a percentage of people who will find offense in whatever it is that your take is. If it's, because like I said, there's everything at the park is loved by somebody. So it's just,
yes,
it's hard to find that thing where everybody agrees. I thought I had an example of it a while back, and I got crushed. I thought, okay, here's a thing that absolutely everybody's going to agree, and I was wrong.
Oh no! Can we ask what was your idea?
I think it was the new Yeti on the Matterhorn, like 4 or 5 years ago when they updated the Matterhorn, and I thought, okay, everybody's going to love this new Matterhorn. Because it was just, to me, it was an improvement over the old one. It was scarier. It was more technologically advanced. It didn't look like it came out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. And sure enough, no, I love the old Yeti. He's way better.
Oh, Harold!
I couldn't believe it.
I do have to agree with you. The new Yeti, the new Harold, is he still called?
Yeah.
The new one's still called Harold, right?
Yeah.
I was like, wait,
Harold.
it wasn't just the original guy.
No.
He's so smooth. It's amazing to me. I
great.
used to be afraid of the old one because it was just freaky looking. But this new one, I try and turn and watch it as we're going past it because it's just incredible to me how fluid he moves. It's awesome.
Well, the Matterhorn has gone through such a transformation, but when it opened, there was nothing in the middle. It was just a shell. Mm-hmm. And so
you could see all the track and all the steel frame, the framework inside. The old video of that is just scary. I just can't believe that was an actual thing.
Well, it's just amazing how much that they've added over years to the same attraction.
Yeah.
Like people today don't even realize that it wasn't like that when it opened. It's crazy.
Nope.
So what are some pros and maybe some cons that you found of being a Disneyland vlogger?
I see the park through the lens always.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't. So there have been a few occasions recently where Liz has taken the camera while we're on an attraction, Buzz Lightyear and Toy Story, for example. Mm-hmm. And it was a whole new world for me. Like I played.
You actually got to experience it, huh?
Yeah, I had more fun than I could ever remember having on Buzz Lightyear. So, that's the negative, is that I see everything through the little flip out, lens, and I mean it's still fine, it's good, but I don't quite get the same experience that everybody else does.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way. But yes, you are the one that is primarily behind the camera. So, of course, obviously, you have to be paying attention to what it is you're doing. I would not be good at that job at all. I would run into things.
Well, I just remember we went with my brother one year, and his wife and kids were, he was in the Air Force, and they were not able to come with him. And we went to Disneyland, so he had his video camera, and he was taping everything. And I said to him at one point, kind of like what you're saying, David, that are you even enjoying yourself? Because are you even experiencing everything? You're so disconnected.
Yeah, and I get that. And you want to say, yeah, you want to ask that question, but I'm having the time of my life.
He's still in
It's still
Disneyland.
Yeah.
You just need
Yeah.
you need to get a body cam. That's what you need. You
Well,
just strap it right on.
Yeah, people think it doesn't work quite as you might think.
Yeah.
I have to be the camera is independent of the rest of my body, and in that sense where I'm not always looking in the direction that I'm filming.
True.
But apart from that, I get as much joy or happiness or whatever you want to call it, being able to transmit what I'm seeing and feeling to guests, or people who are watching.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, I mean, I may not be having the same experience you're having, but I'm having my own great experience, and it's, maybe, who knows, it could be better. I don't know. Because I get to tell that story a little bit about how I'm feeling, and I enjoy that quite a lot.
How did you come up with the? Because the way, as I understand it, how you do the show is you go on a Saturday. I think you go on Saturdays, and you kind of spend a good chunk of the day there, and you film a bunch of stuff. And then over the week, you take pieces of that day, and every day you release a small portion of the piece of the day. How did you come up with that? Because that's a really interesting way to have content every day, but is not new I mean, it's new content, but it's not like you don't have to be at the park every single day.
Well, that's exactly the reason why, is that I wanted to put something out every day, and I understood that it would be more likely that people would watch more video if they weren't, if I didn't just put up a 2-hour video. There's going to be burnout, and I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to sort of just distill it in pieces to the fan. And I thought it would be better for them in that sense, so they could have more focus on a particular section of the show each day. So there's that. Now, having said that, that is an interesting thing, because we're actually kind of transitioning a little bit with the show these days. We're trying, just in the last few weeks, we're evolving into something where we're trying to make each day's show more about a thing, as opposed to just 20 minutes of a 2-hour trip.
Right.
So there's more, they're going to feel more like individual shows than just part of an overall report.
Is there something that kind of sparked this, or you just kind of wanted to freshen some things up, or?
Every day, every week, every month, every year, I try to make the show better. In whatever small ways that I can do that. And I just feel like it's more, if you log in, if you happen to stumble across a Fresh Baked video on a Wednesday, and it's, me just suddenly I'm at the Matterhorn, and you don't understand where I came from, what the context is, that may or may not be appealing to,
Right.
to somebody. So I'm just trying to give the guests a beginning, middle, and end, if I can.
That makes sense. Instead of having just parts of a story, you want each individual thing to be its own story. So you could watch them completely out of order, and you could watch, stuff from last year with stuff from today, and not know that it was different. I get what you're saying.
Well, that's kind
Dave.
of what
That makes
YouTube
sense.
does. I mean, when I watch videos on YouTube, they'll finish, right? And it'll give me a next suggested video, and that may not be the next video in the playlist or whatever. It might give me a video, that they did 2 years ago. But a lot of times you can't, unless you know the park really well, or the quality or something, right? Like, I'm sure that your video quality was not as good as it is now. When you started. I mean, that's the only way that you would kind of tell the difference, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any memorable stories or any kind of like really awesome experiences that you've had while vlogging for Fresh Baked?
Well, yeah.
Tony Baxter.
There are a lot, to the point where it's almost like it's hard to remember sometimes.
That's really awesome.
I've had some. Okay, so just recently, and this actually literally brought me to tears. And this is kind of a personal story for me, as opposed to what Disneyland is doing per se, but I'll share it anyway.
Sure.
We've been covering the Matterhorn construction of the new queue for many months. Every week we'd ride the monorail, and every week we'd update folks on, what tree they took out that day, and, that kind of thing. And you get vested in the process and because like Galaxy's Edge, I'm going to lose my mind when I go to Galaxy's Edge. But anyway,
I think that's everybody.
The day came where they opened up the Matterhorn, and I got to see the queue and I got to ride the ride. And when I exited the Matterhorn, the people who actually built the queue, the Imagineers, the construction workers, were there waiting for me.
That's so cool.
It wasn't like they were there for me per se,
Right,
but they were just kind of hanging around, watching people react. But they recognized me, and they knew what I was doing and what I had been doing, and they watched the show, and it was an affirming moment, as it were.
That's and the thing that's just so neat is first the fact that just the fact that they knew who you were and you knew, and they knew what you were doing, but then also that you knew who they were and you knew what all they had done. Because how many people probably walked right past those Imagineers, had no clue who they were, what they were doing there.
I didn't either until one of them approached me and said, he gave me a little something that defined who they were, and I'm like,
cool.
That was when I lost it a little bit.
That's still real. That's awesome.
That is an amazing story.
Really awesome.
Well, I'm glad you shared that with us, because that's something that I think a lot of people, especially like viewers of yours, they probably don't even know that. I mean, did I miss it? Was it on your show?
It was part of a live stream. We did a live stream that morning, and so you can, there are hints of it where you can kind of get an idea of what's happening, because I had gone offline for a minute while I talked to them.
Right.
But you can see sort of the beginning of my being greeted by them, and then afterward from me talking about it.
That's an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
I think there's something really interesting, because Teresa and I think you've experienced it way more scale than we have, but it's really a weird situation. You start something like you started your channel, we started this podcast, and you kind of just go along, and to you, it seems like nothing changes, right? So like you're going out, you're making a video, you're editing, you're putting it up online. You see that, you're getting some subscribers and stuff, but those are it's kind of just a number. And then you start interacting with people. Like we had people send us emails. We had Teresa, when she went to the park, she met up with a couple of listeners. It's really a weird situation. And I feel like maybe talk about your experience with this too, is like the first time somebody that watches your stuff or consumes your content or knows who you are from putting this thing out, is that kind of a weird experience the first time it happens?
It still is to this day. It is. You're right. It starts off as being kind of awkward and strange and weird. You don't believe that it's happening to you, because who am I and what's the big deal? I'm just an idiot with a camera, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything profound, other than just sharing what I see and how I feel when I go to the park. But it resonates with a certain percentage of people, and when I meet them, I'm going to get emotional, but there are many occasions, because we meet, dozens of people every day at the park, every week. We get shouted out at and whatnot, and we stop and talk with some that want to talk. And sometimes the way that they describe, watching the show, what it means to them, it blows me away. I'm humbled all the time. I can't believe that it's happening to me.
Well, and what's cool about it too is you never, and we didn't start this way either, but like, you probably didn't start doing videos thinking that it was going to impact people's lives the way it has.
Nope.
And the fact that you bring joy to their life through their computer screen or their cell phone screen or tablet screen, just sharing your experiences and your love of the park, is just, you don't set out to do that. It just kind of happens.
No, I just thought it'd be a fun thing to do. Turn the camera on and see what's good. I just thought it was neat.
Yeah.
It's cool how it grows and how like you get this community of people that, and really Disneyland fans are like the best people we've learned.
Yeah, they are.
By far. They're just amazing. So kind, so generous.
So have you made any friends that like you've met because of doing Fresh Baked?
Well, my wife.
Really?
Yeah. Matter of fact, both my wife and Ian, who's on the show with us, were just fans of the show who followed along with us. They came to the park, and this a long time ago, years ago, we used to let fans hang out. They could follow me as I walk around the park and film, and they would just hang out.
Very cool.
Can't do that anymore because there's just too many.
Yeah.
But it was about 3 years ago when I met. It was, matter of fact, it was the same day. Ian and Liz, I met them on the same day.
Oh, wow.
And I have not been able to shed either one of them.
And they're still following. No, I'm just kidding. Wow, that's really... So who would have ever thought that you would have gotten a co-host and a best friend and a wife from doing these little videos? That's really cool. I didn't know that.
They were literal fans of the show.
Very cool. Well, so obviously they're very supportive then.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm very lucky in that sense with Liz, is that she gets it. So I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, she looks like she has just as much fun as you do in the parks. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure. That's why she was, she gravitated towards the channel in the first place, is because she felt like a lot of her fans do, that she wanted to know more about the park, and that worked out.
Ian seems like a encyclopedia of Disneyland knowledge.
He is a sponge. He just remembers everything. He remembers everything.
Yeah, it's crazy because a lot of times he seems to be kind of the... I feel, and this is just my opinion of watching your videos, I feel like you're kind of like the kind of whimsical, you kind of, when you're talking like the construction stuff, right? You'll kind of, pie in the sky, you'll be like, I think it's for this, or I think it's for that, or it could be for this. And like, the sky's the limit with you. And then when you're in the park with Ian, Ian's very, well, no, it's like this, or it's probably going to be that, or I read this here. Like he's the very... he's the fact checker of the show. But he's really knowledgeable. I was like, wow, they've got a good kind of team. Now, is there anything interesting or surprising that you've learned about the parks from vlogging? Or is there anything that like maybe you wouldn't have known or paid attention to?
Or even something maybe that you've noticed because of vlogging?
Well,
yeah.
I think
as a guest you would have.
I guess I would have to say and I don't know if this is the vlogging aspect of it, but I've become more in tune to, well, for one, how difficult it is to run a park.
That's true.
It's just an impossible situation that you can't make mistakes at Disneyland. The Disney company, you can't, because whatever decision they make is permanent. And it lasts, even if they hate it, it lasts 20 years.
Right.
So
the new Tomorrowland, for instance.
Yeah. Look at the Lilo and Stitch attraction at Disney World. That is, everyone agrees that's the worst attraction in the Disney universe.
Stitch's Great Escape?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, Stitch's Great Escape. And that's been, how long has that attraction been around? I mean, they still can't undo that one.
Yeah.
So, it's easy to armchair this stuff and say we should do this, kind of like your conversation with the Autopia earlier. You could certainly, you could make a great attraction there. But once you do, Autopia is gone forever.
Yeah.
And imagine being the executive who has to make that decision.
Oh gosh.
Well, I'm sure that you know enough about the park, and I know you've also done some like park history videos and stuff. So I'm sure Ian could probably talk it up too. But they talk about getting rid of Lincoln or something, and like everybody comes out of the woodworks, and there's petitions and all this stuff, and it's just crazy because. And I'm guilty of it too, and we've had some listeners in our chat talk about this as well, which is it's not a museum. Walt always wanted things to be fresh and new and like things to change and all that stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that when he was alive that was there and he took out and put something else there. And nowadays I feel like it'd be so different trying to do that. People would probably just trust Walt because it's Walt, but I feel like it's really hard with a place like Disneyland to, especially older attractions like the Tiki Room or Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, like any of those things, that there's such, just like you said, there's 10,000 fans for any little thing in the park. And so you're going to make those 10,000 people upset no matter what.
I use Big Thunder again as an example. This is one of the reasons why I like this attraction, but it's a great example of my favorite attraction wouldn't exist if we held Disneyland to the opening day standard, because it replaced, the minecart ride.
Yeah.
They had to take out, a legacy attraction in order to do that, to great effect. But that's a testament to the brilliance, the creativity, the excellence of Tony Baxter. Do we have that? That's the question I would ask today. Do we have the competence in an Imagineer to successfully replace an attraction like Autopia with something? Do we just get some flavor of the month, or do we get something that's lasting and amazing like Big Thunder? It's such a risky thing, and it's the reason why Disney leans so heavily on IPs when designing attractions, because they can't make a mistake, and they've got to have, it's got to be backed up by something we know and love already, rather than something original like Big Thunder. But it's a very, very difficult thing that they, to do that.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm glad that I'm not the person that has to make that decision, because I very much want to see more original attractions, more original concepts, because for me, they feel like they stand the test of time much better than, say,
every great attraction at Disneyland is an original.
Yeah. So, I would love to see more, but then it's just so risky. So I get why they're playing it safe. And, we have a Marvel land instead of maybe some other.
Well, and that brings up what I was going to ask, which is, what is your opinion of switching from, and we've talked about this on the show before, which is, I like the idea of Adventureland, Frontierland, Fantasyland, kind of have a theme of a land that's very kind of generic, and then you have specific IPs or whatever in those lands, as opposed to like a Galaxy's Edge, which is a land totally for Star Wars, or Cars Land, which is all about cars. What's kind of your opinion with like that?
Well, yeah, and I think that we would all prefer what you're talking about. I think we would all prefer an Adventureland as opposed to a Marvel Land. But that goes towards what we're saying. There's, it's a hard thing to try to get right. Because you can't make a mistake. You can't get it wrong, because then you get Bugs Land for 20 years in another example.
But there's some people that love Bugs Land, but that again leads to your 10,000 people for everything.
There's always someone.
Right. There are some people who love Bugs Land, but certainly not enough that loved it to the point where it could be considered a successful endeavor on Disney's part. It's a failure. Bugs Land was a failure. In the terms of, it resonating with Disney guests. And the fact that it's being replaced is all the example that you need, is all the proof that you need. If it was any better, it wouldn't be replaced, but it's not good enough. Bugs Land isn't good enough.
Do you feel that Toontown is teetering on that not good enough?
Toontown is bonkers 24/7. I'll say that. That's a crowded land. I don't like going in there most of the time, because it is bonkers. So it's a success, and if you look at attendance, I'm not a fan.
Interesting, because I feel like there's not much back there.
No, but that's because we're adults and we see things through a different,
that's true.
A different lens. Than there are lots of children in there having the time of their lives. I go up into Chippendale's treehouse every week to do a segment for Star Wars Land for Galaxy's Edge. I go up in that treehouse, so I get to see what you and I would describe as probably the most insignificant thing in the whole park. It's literally a tree. You climb up 8 steps and you go down 8 steps, and that is it. There is nothing in that tree. There's one picture, and then you're out. You're out the back. I watch kid after kid after kid go through that tree while I'm filming, and they're just like, "Oh my god, this is great!"
It's the best thing ever.
But then every adult that comes out of like, "Is that it? I thought there was more."
Right. Well, that's how I felt riding Gadget's Go Coaster. I waited in line for that for like God, like 40 minutes one time. And it's like the chain lift is the longest part of that whole thing because it's like it loops around, you're done. And I'm like, that was it.
I love Gadget's Go Coaster, so don't
It's
hate
fun.
me.
No, it's fun. It was just like, oh, like I mean, you could say that almost about any attraction, but like your wait to attraction ride time was very, very minimal. Now, this kind of goes in, you were talking about your segments and going into the treehouse and stuff. So it's kind of a couple questions together. One is, how much time do you invest each week? Well, there's the editing aspect that we'll ask about in a bit, but how much time do you invest on a Saturday when you're there? How much time do you spend in the park? And then kind of, how do you plan your day when you go in on a Saturday? Like, because I know you do the construction videos. I know you have some other types of videos that are not just here's our time in the park or whatever that you release daily or whatever. How do you kind of plan all that?
Generally speaking, we're there for 8 hours on a Saturday. We'll get there at 8 and leave at 4, give or take an hour. There is a certain agenda for most days. There's a few things, if there's something new happening, or I feel like I just have a need to do something that particular week that, that'll be on the schedule, but otherwise it's fairly open. And then we just kind of hit the items that we do for the construction videos along the way while we're doing something. It might, if we're on our way to Haunted Mansion, that's when I jump on the Mark Twain or that kind of thing. But it's all part of, the time I spend doing the construction updates or getting B-roll for a specific special feature are all part of, the overall day.
Well, that's a good way to do it. I mean, that's pretty smart. So I will say that the time that you're in the park does get you out of the park at my favorite time, which is nighttime. So you don't go at night very often, huh? You're out of there by 4 and done?
Yeah, there's usually 2 reasons for that. One, it's not as filmable at night.
That makes sense. Yep.
The camera that I use for vlogging isn't the best, for night video. So there's that. Plus, it's just super nuts usually at night. And I know it sounds, odd, but I have social anxiety, and it's difficult for me to be in the park when it's super busy.
Well, pretty soon it seems like it's going to be impossible for you to be there ever.
Well, yeah, I'm having to sort of work my way around that.
Yep. Well, and you know the park so well. You know that there are quiet areas too. That's the kind of the best part about Disneyland is you could be on Main Street in the hub and it's just madness. It's just this sea of people for all, as long as you can see, and then you could just take a couple steps off the beaten path and suddenly you feel like you're alone again. Yeah. It's very cool that way.
Yeah.
So how often do you get to sort of unplug and enjoy the park just as a regular guest? Do you guys do that often? Or So whenever you hand the camera over to Liz and she films while you're playing like Buzz Astro Blasters, okay, got it.
Yeah, I've been without the camera at the park maybe 3 times in 6 years.
Wow.
I feel like maybe we need to do an intervention and have you go without the camera sometime.
That's what Liz keeps saying.
and then you're gonna find viewers of yours in there, and they're gonna be like, "Where's the camera?"
Like, who are you?
I'll find something that I want to be filming. That's the real thing. I get FOMO.
I was going to ask you, so you kind of did that though, because you went on, it was your honeymoon, wasn't it, to Disneyland Paris?
Yeah.
And so you guys didn't film the whole time you were there, so that was kind of a good unplug, right?
Mm-hmm.
We filmed our entire trip to Disneyland Paris.
So I didn't have this written down. I wrote it as we were talking, but like, where did the name Fresh Baked Disney come from?
Yeah, that old chestnut. We get that a lot. Okay, so the story goes like this. I had a girlfriend who lived around the corner from the park, in Anaheim. And whenever I would drive to her house, I would drive past Disneyland. And then there was a bakery, like a mom and pop bakery on the corner. And they had one of those, marquees where they would, whatever it is that they're doing, whatever special or hot that day. But they had a funny saying. They'd said, instead of saying baked fresh daily, it said Dakem Fresh Bailey. They had mixed up the letters. And I thought that was cute. I thought that was clever. It always got a, kind of a wink and a smile from me. So I remembered that. And when it came time to name the channel, I remembered that, associating that with Disney. And I said, that would be a fun way because I wanted something that was sort of non sequitur. I didn't want to just say the Disneyland channel or whatever, that
Right.
I wanted it to be weird, I guess.
Well, and you got a lot of plays on words and stuff too. Like you call your community like muffins and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of cute like little things you can add to that. So that's kind of cool.
And it does sort of tie in with, putting out daily content, that kind of thing. So
I like the story behind that. That's
I
awesome.
do too.
Oh, that was our other question. So how much time would you estimate you spend each week editing all of these videos that you put out? Because you put at least one out each day. So how long does it take you to kind of chop everything up and get it exactly how you want it?
It's a full-time job. I'm fortunate that I have, I can work from home and do this while I work. But so between, my regular job and this, I do literally work from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day.
Wow.
Well, even more thanks going your way for spending some time with us then, because I'm sure you're falling behind.
I'm currently not editing video right now, you guys.
Ooh.
Awesome.
He is off the clock.
That's good. That's good.
Kind of.
Yeah. So we do have a question from our moderator because he was really excited to get you on our show.
Oh yes, I think he's actually I think he's a patron of yours too.
Doug.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I think I think the only two people on the Patreon universe that he supports are you and I.
Yeah.
Or us and you, or how we want to say that.
So thank you.
Yeah, we will.
Well, yeah, we'll let him know because he wants to know if you had one last day at Disneyland, what meal would you eat, and what attraction would be a must-do?
The French dip at the French Market. And the Disneyland Railroad.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah.
You're good. Doug asks a lot of tough questions.
Yeah.
So he's our, like Tag said, he's our moderator in our chat, and so daily he'll throw one of these questions out. And some of them I'm really apparently very indecisive when it comes to all things Disneyland.
You
I've
indecisive?
learned
No.
because of these questions. So I'm very proud of you for answering it that quickly. I was like, oh my God, I don't, where do you even begin?
Well, I'm trying to find
Good answers though. Very good answers.
So today's question, he said, was what's your favorite walk-around character interaction you've had at Disneyland? So it's like, I just remember I had a really good Cruella de Vil one. What? I'm sure you've had a lot of character interactions.
Oh, sure.
So do you have a favorite character interaction you've had?
All time would probably be the instance where Sarah we were walking past the Matterhorn and the Evil Queen walked by, and I literally said to her, "Get her." and so we chased the Evil Queen through Fantasyland, through the castle, around Alice in Wonderland, around the teacups, and eventually the Evil Queen had required that somebody hold her cape. So Sarah was the one that got to, walk behind the Evil Queen holding her cape, and then at the end we all stopped and had an awesome meet and greet with her by the Matterhorn. So it was a pretty epic moment.
That is pretty awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The characters' interactions are great. I love how you can ask them stuff and like they will stay in character, even if you're like, we walked in, we took some autograph books for our nieces and nephews, and we wanted to get one autograph to start their autograph book. So when they went to the Disney park for the first time, that they'd have like a starter book. And this was during the Diamond Celebration. And I remember going in and I don't know what we said. We said something, but she asked us about like what we were wearing or what we were like I had my camera or something. And she was asking like, oh, what is this newfangled technology and stuff? Like, I don't know. It was just it's so cool. Like that they're so into character.
We get that a lot with certain characters. They will incorporate whatever it is that you bring into their act.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's great. They're the best.
Do you have so here's a question that our listeners and people that might start watching you. Do you have any like big plans for the future for the channel? Is there anything that you kind of want to that you're aspiring the channel to be that it hasn't quite gotten to yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's tricky because on the one hand, our anchor content is the daily trip reports. It's, the stuff we put out from our visits on Saturdays. And that does occupy a large part of our content and my time. But something that I really do want to do more of are more produced, highly produced features about the park, be that secrets and histories or, just aesthetically shot stuff at the park to, just more polish, more production. So that's something that's why I got a new camera recently. That we're going to start hopefully incorporating some new footage. You'll see some of that this coming week, actually.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
So yeah, we are in a position of trying to transition the channel a little bit to more featured content.
Yeah. Well, I think that there'll be a bunch of your audience that will obviously love that. I like a lot of the feature stuff. Like I consider like your construction updates like a featured kind of. I mean, it's not heavily produced, but it's definitely something that's interesting. And like you said earlier, you try to kind of do some episodes that are more focused on one kind of topic or whatever, and I like that because I know exactly what I'm getting into. Because sometimes with your videos, for me, I'll click on one, you'll have a clever title or something, and I'll click on it, and I'm like, okay, so this is like, the daily vlog kind of thing I'm looking through, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking for that specific part of whatever you said in the title, because that's what I care about. But I like the construction. Like I said, I watch all your construction ones because I find that interesting. And a lot of times I look for stuff for our podcast, because you're there seeing the stuff and visual, pictures tell 1,000 words. Yes. So it's nice to see it. We look on news sites and stuff and we see photos, but a video really is something so different. There's so much that's lost just in a particular photograph that a video really shows off.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, so we'll kind of wrap things up then with you, Dave. If you could work at Disneyland, what role would you want to play and why?
I want to be the guy who can say, I want to be the no guy. I want to be the guy who they say, okay, let's run this by Dave and see if this is a good idea. Because I want to be the one who says, no, that's dumb. Please don't do that.
Not the yes guy, the no guy.
I want to be the no guy. Yeah. Because there's a lot of yes guys and, they make decisions that are often, financially, inspired perhaps.
Sure,
and they don't see the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get that, there's, more to it than just, revenue per square foot. And it goes towards, they don't know that they're making the bad decision until it's, already done.
Right.
Well, and it's all depends on how you view things, right? It's your lens. They're looking at it from one angle where you could be the person looking at it from just the passionate enthusiast in, that section of it. I think sometimes it gets difficult to be running a business and looking at it as a business and then also remembering to look at it for what it is and how much it inspires people. I get it. You'd be the guy sticking up for people like us that just really are passionate and just love the park.
I just feel like I know that there's a lot of missteps you can make, but I feel like with the Disney parks, especially Disneyland, I feel like sometimes if they just were to take a chance on something, that seems risky, that I feel like it would be very difficult for Disney to lose money at Disneyland. Do you know what I mean? Like it would take so much to lose money there.
Well, but they can, and that's the difficulty with being in any kind of business today. When you're a publicly traded company, that if you don't show profit, if you don't show an increase in revenue year over year, then it's a failure. Yeah. So you may be increasing in revenue 1% every year for the last 10 years, to the point where now you're earning 10% more this year than you did 10 years ago. But if you go down to 9, that's a failure, even though it's still a 9% over 9 years ago. They still see that as a failure. So the only way that they can do that is to constantly mess with the margins and the edges, and finding square footage and finding additional revenue or additional margins. That's why they keep they add the stuff like over at the launch bay, that nighttime thing they do up there.
Oh yeah.
I forget the name of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
used
just
to be fireworks.
Yeah, they're just trying to find little ways to increase revenue year over year. But there's, at some point, I mean, somebody, I don't know how you do this, who's that person is, but somebody's going to have to say, we made enough.
Yeah, right.
We made enough. And that was the luxury that Walt had when he built the park in the first place, and which is why, and I understand why people are so infatuated with how he built the park to begin with, was because he didn't have to answer to any of that.
That's true.
He could do whatever he wanted. It was his train set, and he made whatever train set he wanted. And and he was the one who could say, yes, we're going to spend that extra money, where Carl Finance guy would have to say no because he's got a budget and people to answer to, and Walt didn't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah, I wish there was more of that, and I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's really impossible nowadays for these type of things, but
it's literally impossible. Yeah,
yeah. And one thing I love,
just unfortunate.
One thing I love about Walt, people like Walt, I would even say, in this specific case that I'm going to say, I feel like Steve Jobs was like this too, where they both were very good at pushing people to limits they did not think that they were capable to get things done. And I feel this way a lot when I talk about projects and stuff. A lot of times, I'm a small peon, right, at a credit union, and somebody goes, oh, you come up with an idea, you go, oh, how come you can't do this? And like, it might be a great idea, but people are like, oh, we come up with 1,000 reasons why it won't work, instead of like, why not? Why not just try it? Let's find out what happens. And I feel like that's Steve Jobs, that's Walt Disney, was just very, why not? Let's try it. Let's create the impossible, right? Yep. And there's a lot of that's kind of missing nowadays, and a lot of boundaries I feel like aren't pushed as far as they could be. I tell Teresa, we've talked about this on the show before too, where if Walt Disney stayed alive, how much further would technology and entertainment and stuff be compared to where we are now, because he pushed the envelope so much?
If Walt Disney were still alive, he would have moved on to urban planning. I'm positive.
Yeah.
Well, that's another sore spot.
Huge impact on that.
I feel Epcot was, oh God, I watched that Epcot video. I got it on one of those DVDs a few years ago, and it blew my mind. And all I wanted in my whole life was for that to have come to fruition, because I would have been.
A lot of people don't realize, today's generation especially, and I probably sound like the old get off my lawn guy, but a lot of the today's generation don't understand that Epcot was a real thing. Right. That Epcot was a real plan for a real city. It wasn't an amusement park. It
had nothing to do with showcasing the world.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. It's amazing how different that came out to be from what the original concept was.
It's tough though, because as much as I like the idea of the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, I also still really like Disney World. But like, I don't know. I feel like the world would be a better place if we had Epcot as opposed to more theme parks.
The world would be a different place.
The world would be a better place if we had Walt Disney. I'll say that.
That's true. All right. Well, David, thank you so much for sharing part of your evening with us, that you either could have been editing a video or had time off from editing videos, that you decided to continue to talk about Disney with us and our audience. So we definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
We have launched another way for you to join in the conversation with the community. You can head over to dlweekly.net/forum to be taken to our new forums. They are free and open to everyone to chat about Disney parks all around the world. So head on over and make a quick post about yourself in the introductions forum and join in on the discussion.
Well, did you enjoy listening to this episode of DL Weekly? You can support the show for as little as 25 cents an episode. If you want access to the supporter chat like we always talk about, it's only 75 cents an episode. Please consider joining supporters like KP and head over to dlweekly.net/support.
Well, now it's time to return to James in Trivia Land to get the answers to this week's trivia.
We are eager for at least the fourth one.
Very.
And after you were so confident after the first two.
See,
right?
you jinxed it, Tay.
Sorry. It's those dang listener questions.
See, it's not even me. All right, so the first question was, what was the only dark ride at the opening of DCA?
And we went with Superstar Limousine.
And you are right.
Boop, boop.
It only lasted a year, and now it's the same place where the Monsters, Inc. ride is.
Correct. And in fact, it uses the same ride vehicles and I think layout. They just rethemed everything.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know anything about it or didn't get to explore it, basically the ride zoomed you from the LAX airport to your premiere. Along the way, you went through famous locations such as Beverly Hills and Malibu, and you saw diverse stars along the way. And the list that I was given started with Drew Carey and Cher, so they're definitely going for diverse stars.
Right.
All right, our second question was, how many times do you see Indy in the Indiana Jones ride?
And we said 3.
And you are correct.
Yeah. It's because it's like one of our favorite attractions, so we hopefully know it.
I had to give you a softball eventually,
Sure.
right? So, all right, our third question, which came from Richard, was at Disneyland on It's a Small World, the stay in your boat instructions are spoken in 5 languages. What are they?
And we said English, Spanish, French, Italian, and German.
And you were so close.
Probably
You got
not Italian.
4 out of the 5 right.
Okay.
It is probably not Italian. That is correct. The 5th language, according to Richard, is Japanese.
Ooh.
Oh, that seems obvious now.
There's a lot
So
of
what do we
popular
get
languages.
points-wise for that one?
I mean, if you want the actual count, it would be like 0.8 points, but
Okay, I'm putting 0.8.
we were very strict here with trivia.
Ooh, I can't wait for this one.
This one-
This was the stumper of the week.
Yeah, so this one came from Lauren W. And fair warning, the history behind this is a bit murky, but what popular mainstream snack food was created in the parks?
I said churro,
And I said Dole Whip.
but we know we're both wrong.
Yeah, you're both way wrong. It's actually Doritos.
What?
Yeah, so the history behind it is during the early 60s, the Mexican eatery Casa de Fritos, which we now know as Rancho del Zocalo, would take stale tortilla chips, spice them, and fry them up, creating what we now know as Doritos. So it was a snack that was inspired by the Mexican snack Totopo. The chips became extremely popular, so popular that Frito-Lay bought the concept and debuted Doritos to the world in 1966 as the first marketed tortilla chip.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, Wikipedia says that the concept for Doritos originated in a restaurant in Disneyland. It is official on Wikipedia.
And you know everything on Wikipedia is true. So
Well, nobody's come up and did a whole thing, so you're right. That is fascinating. And
Interesting.
Doritos, such a huge brand nowadays.
yeah, so if you have great trivia questions or mediocre trivia questions like the ones that I ask, you should send them to me to help stump Tag and Teresa each week. My email is trivia@dlweekly.net, and only I get to see them, so that way we can get their legitimate answers.
Right?
Well, we will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
So until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Disneyland has now ended its normal operating day. We hope you've enjoyed your visit to the Magic Kingdom and that you'll be back with us again soon.